Evening. I would like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting to order for Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. The time is now 6 o'clock. Would you please stand with me, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C is the roll call of council members, and I will ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton? Here. Councilmember Brocksmith? Here. Councilmember Correas?
Here.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Tercero?
Here.
Councilmember Vanderstoop?
Here. Thank you. Item 2 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Council, like a motion to approve the agenda or any changes?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Yidis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. We are on to community comments. So we have a public hearing tonight for the budget. If you're here to talk about the 2026 budget, we'd ask you to just hold tight for just a moment, and we'll do any other topics right now for community comments. So if you're here for community comments, come on up to the podium. Please state your name and your city of residence, and we ask that you would please limit your comments to about 3 minutes. Hello.
Good evening. My name's Alex Glasgow. I live in the city of Mount Vernon. What I bring tonight is kind of an issue I feel like is for most homeowners. And this issue kind of pertains to building services, building development services, my bad. And it's the fact that permits are good. I think permits need to be in certain places in order to keep things in order. But when permits start asking homeowners an unrealistic, and I think goes against homeowners' rights, and the specific issue I'm thinking about is, so I live in the floodplain, west side, and I have to get the flood permit. Totally fine. The problem I have with this flood permit is I'm required to provide a free market value of the cost of my project. Regardless, if I was to do it myself, which I am, regardless of the cost that I actually paid for the project. Now, we do live in a pretty expensive state if you ask most homeowners, and contractors are through the roof. I know I'm in the lumber industry. So with that, homeowners, if they can do it and they know how to do it well, they'll do it themselves. But if the city is going to require me to present a free market value of what a contractor would cost, materials and labor, regardless of what I pay, I think that's not right. Because in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, any homeowner, and I guarantee you 80% of the contractors go to Home Depot, they upcharge the material cost for not very good lumber, and that is considered free market value. Now, any homeowner can go to Home Depot, buy the same materials, and put the labor in, and yes, there's no labor cost, but the point of doing it yourself is to avoid labor costs. So I know that the process too is once I give this cost of project, that determines prices of permits, which that's fine. It's a job that's required. But if the purpose is to try to gain more out of the homeowner, I feel like that's not right. So that's the issue I present tonight for the city council.
Great. Thank you, Alex.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Understand we have at least one person online who wishes to give public comment. Before we do that, is there anyone else in council chambers who would like to address city council? Okay, with that, I'll ask our participant online to please unmute. And you go ahead, you have 3 minutes. If you'd please state your name and city of residence. Do we have an online participant who's still hoping to speak?
Hi there. Yes, my name is Callie Lowenstein. I'm a resident educator and mom here in Mount Vernon. I just wanted to share, I have comments later for the budget hearing. But first, I just wanted to share an idea and suggestion, which is that I've been pretty active in the local elections recently. And one of the things that came up over and over again in conversations with community members was not being able to keep up or feel like what's going on in city council was accessible. And one of the things I think about when I go to the public library is that that entryway space is an underutilized opportunity for making that work really publicly available. And so I just wanted to present the idea of using the entryway space right as the public walks into the public library. That's a place that people are going into anyway. They don't need to go out of their way to access that information. And so how could we take advantage of that space as a way to make the work of the city council and the mayor's office and our public services more visible and more clearly communicated to the public? Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for thinking of that idea. That's not a bad one. Is Isaac with us this evening? Is he in? Okay. We will pass that along to our library director. All right, anyone else here for community comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to new business. Item 4A is a public hearing for the 2026 city budget, and our city finance director, Doug Valesky, is going to introduce this item. Hello, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm excited to be here tonight so the city of Mount Vernon is required to hold a public hearing to discuss the 2026 proposed budget. Following a public hearing and discussion of the proposed budget, city council may then adopt the budget, which must be adopted prior to the beginning of the ensuing year. During discussions with city council the past few months, there has been some adjustments to the preliminary budget document. These adjustments are also included in your attached budget summary document, as well as in the public hearing presentation that I'll be giving tonight. The preliminary budget will continue to be adjusted according to council's direction prior to adoption with a detailed list of these adjustments. And I will be going over all the adjustments that were made to the preliminary budget tonight. So with that, first wanted to go over just kind of the budget process. So it's many people in the city are involved in the budget process. From the frontline workers working with their managers and their directors, making sure that everything is accounted for, what kind of goals need to be met with finances and trying to take care of that. Our budget, just a reminder, is a zero-based budget. We don't start with a base budget from last year and then make changes. We start at zero and only budget for what is needed. After all those discussions at the department level, they move up to the directors with the mayor and the mayor's office, where they go over all the budget that's presented from the mayor's budget. It's been a full year process this year because we knew there was going to be some issues coming here, and it's kind of been very difficult with there's really no new initiatives in our budget this year, just a lot of major cuts, and then we'll talk about the changes that were made to that. And then from there, the mayor brings his budget to the council for discussion and approval.
Doug, if I could just cut in for a second, I want to kind of underscore something that you have said, which is that, that process, that budget process that normally is something that begins in late summer, early fall on a normal year, did begin a lot earlier this year. Really, we started taking a focused look at this budget back in late 2024. So around this time last year, because that's when our finance director, Doug, alerted us that we were already anticipating a significant 2026 budget shortfall. And so we decided earlier this year we could not waste any time. We began implementing a few even more fiscally restrained strategies than we already were that would help to carry on our our mission to provide services, and also to try to bridge the gap, which was the largest projected budget deficit in the city's recent history. So along with that, we took substantial steps toward intentionally alerting our residents that when it came to providing these 24-hour, 7-day-a-week services, something needed to give, because the city was already operating at such a bare bones staffing level. We were going to either need to identify a way to increase revenues, or we would need to make some really difficult decisions around making cuts to public services. So a great deal of thought and sacrifices have been made in the past 10 months by a number of city departments and their respective directors and staff members. And through those sacrifices, we were able to bridge the deficit and the gap and balance the 2026 budget without laying off any employees. I said last fall, and we all said it repeatedly this year, the negative financial trajectory was unsustainable. And so we decided later this year, in the middle of this year, that we would ask our residents a simple question. Would they be willing to fund the increasing demand for city services at a level that our 36,000 residents require, or would they instead prefer the city to scale back many of the basic services that we are already trying to provide with our limited services to our city? Staff and city council and I made that urgent decision this past summer to put that question to our residents in the form of a November ballot proposition. And last week, we got an answer from our residents. Our residents told us that they want to see Mount Vernon's public safety services, police and fire, get funded and staffed at a more adequate level. They told us that the current low level of funding for our parks and public spaces was inadequate, and that it's time to start addressing the long list of items on our deferred maintenance list. It's time for us to begin looking like the city that we want to become. And so for that answer that the voters gave us a week or two ago, that answer to our question, I just wanted to publicly thank the voters in the city of Mount Vernon. Your yes vote on this levy lid lift is a statement of value, and it's a statement of trust. And I want our residents to know the immense weight of that responsibility that we all feel moving forward with a sustainable plan that's going to accomplish all of the goals that we share for our city. And to do that while sensibly managing what has been entrusted to us, so that the next mayors and the next city council members and the next finance director, so that our future residents don't all find themselves stuck in a similar position. We don't want to go back to that place. And so we commit to continuing to provide Mount Vernon residents with the same access and transparency and accountability that's available to them now. And we absolutely plan to continue partnering with them in utilizing these precious resources that are going to be conservatively utilized to transition this city into a place that even more of us will be proud to call our hometown. So thank you for that. And with that, Doug, let me know if I can interrupt your presentation anymore.
Anytime, Mayor. So thank you, Mayor. And just again, to reiterate that the reflection of the levy is presented in this budget that I'm going to be talking about tonight. So, but first of all, just a little reminder for those out there that hadn't seen this before. In our preliminary budget, we kind of, for the general fund, broke things out as non-discretionary budget items versus discretionary budget items. Non-discretionary are things that we pay for as far as salaries, benefits, contractual agreements, maintenance, debt service, etc. And then non-discretionary, things that we actually have control over, things that we can manipulate, like all estimated overtime expenses, except for those from public safety operations, office supplies, minor tools, equipment, non-essential professional services, those types of things. And throughout the years, I present this every year, that number, we cut this number lower and lower and lower. Well, we're down to 3.1% in the preliminary budget that was presented of discretionary budget items. So there's not much out there left to cut. So just wanted to bring that up, and then I'll move on and discuss our preliminary budget. So our preliminary budget, citywide budget is $92,979,109. Our governmental operating budgets, which includes the general fund, parks, library, and streets, is $50,216,251. Our governmental operating funds reserve estimates an increase of 1.6 million this year, while last year in 2025, the city budgeted a decrease of 1.9 million of reserves. There is right now an estimated general fund balance at December 31st, 2026 at being about $6.7 million. That's 18.3%, which is within our 15% policy of reserves that we have to have. With that, just a little breakdown of our revenue sources. So these are our governmental operating funds, and you can see the majority of our revenue does come from taxes. We have property taxes at 28%, sales taxes at 20%, utility and other taxes at 11%. We have some charges for services and intergovernment revenue, but the majority of all of our revenue for governmental operating funds is property tax, or excuse me, our taxes. Of that dollar amount, 61% of that total budget for governmental operating goes to public safety and criminal justice. Of that 61%, 30% of it goes to the police, 25% to fire, 2% to other, and 4% to criminal justice. And then the remaining percentage, goes to like development services, 6%. And as you can see on here, I won't go through all of them. Parks and enrichment, 6%, library, 4%. But 61% of our budget, as should be, goes to public safety and criminal justice. So what's all included in this budget? Well, the passing of Proposition number 1, the levy lid lift, increased our property tax amount revenue of $2.9 million, and general fund expenses increased by $1.5 million. And I'll go into great detail on these things in a bit here. Parks and Rec Fund, the property tax increase of $1.5 million and expense increase of over $1,067,000. We are assuming that our sales tax remains at the 2024 and 2025 levels at just about $10 million. And those of you who don't know, we do have a vacancy savings that we apply to our budget, and it's a negative number that goes against our budget to that we try to hit to make sure that we have vacancy savings enough to account for a certain percentage. That amount has been lately, recently, years past, at 4%, and this year we brought that down to 3% because there's really we really don't have vacant positions as much as we do, and the ones we have, we still are remaining open. So also affordable housing and related services financed through restricted sources coming from 1590 and 1406 funding. These are all entities had to apply for these city grants and were selected and awarded by City Council. We do have a city iOS program that does get a portion of this also for $703,000. Skagit Community Action at $474,000, the Oasis Teen Shelter for $100,000, New Earth Recovery for $200,000, Welcome Home Skagit for $68,000, Salem Lutheran Church for $120,000, the Mount Vernon Manor Annex $100,000, Skagit County Family Promise $125,200, Children of the Valley, 25,000, United Way of Skagit County, 37,600, and Martha's Place for $65,029 for a total of just over $2 million. And again, these are financing for this are coming from restricted sources. This is not out of the general fund. Also included are street improvements that utilize different grants and also our transportation benefit district funding. And this year we have included in our budget local street improvements of $1 million, Riverside Drive improvement projects for $890, Division Street and SR 536 bridge planning for $200,000, 15th Street sidewalk improvements for $150, LaVenture Road widening for $125, ADA sidewalk transition for $100. 30th Street improvement, 65, and then we have some, sidewalk gap program, the signal maintenance program, street lights and police department camera installation, and then there's improvements for lighting on our Colchin Trail for safety. A total of all of these come to about 2.6, almost $7 million. So including the new FTE that were included with the levy lift approved that I'll go over, this was also increases to the budget. Wages, benefits, and overtime of $2 million. Our public defense contract right now is running almost $900,000. There was an increase this year of $370,000. Repair and maintenance contracts for $363,000. Insurance, $286,000. Continued comp planning for $390,000. Skagit County waste disposal fees going up $200,000. Public utility service are estimated to go up about $85,000. The 911 center fees to the city are going up $76,000. Professional service contracts that we have that are we're obligated to pay for, they've gone up $71,000. And then that offset for vacancy savings going from 4% to 3%, that's actually a negative, a decrease. So that was $300,000. So these are increases that this covers all of our funds, not just the general fund. But as you can see here, there's increases that we really don't have a lot of control of, and these are the major ones that come in about $4.2 million. There is one new FTE request. It's actually a funding change, and this is in our attorney's office. We have a one FTE, a prosecutor. It was a limited term position that was hired with ARPA funds to help with the backlog of prosecution cases during COVID. Now that there's no longer any ARPA funds remaining, the city is requesting to fund this position in the general fund. So the total funding request for this one FTE prosecutor is an amount of $137,043.
Doug, can I have you just pause there for a moment? I'm going to ask City Council if they had any questions about anything that's been presented to this point. Okay, feel free to raise a hand, wave a hand, flag me down, and we'll...
Absolutely. I tend to talk fast, so free to stop me. Other things that we have in our budget that are medical premium increases. So our medical insurance through Regents has gone up 8.7% for next year. Our Left Trust is 5%, Delta Dental 4.3%, and Willamette Dental at 7.6%. And again, all these numbers are included. Also, what's included is in the additions for the levy lid lift. Our levy lid lift was very specific to fire, police, and parks. I'm going to go in all these in detail when I present the changes that we made, so I'm not going to do that now. You have this sheet. I also put it in your packet today. I just wanted to point out that there is one additional line item that's in here that you did not have last week that we added, and that was in parks. There's additional operating expenses. Can't get this mouse to, well, it's for $79,650. That's additional operating expenses from ARPA. These are expenses that were included with ARPA funding in 2025 budget, And part of a lot of maintenance stuff this is in here, and supplies, things to that when the levy passed was it was missed before, so that needed to get added back in if the levy passed. So this is just actually a small amount of it, but these are the things that Director Berner thought were most needed. So that number you're not familiar with, we just added that this week, but the rest of that nothing has changed. So what's not included in our budget? So with the passing of the levy lid lift, the city still has not funded. We have 12 vacant positions. These are not positions that we're laying off. These are actual positions that were never filled, and that we chose not to fill this year to show some savings. Again, these are not funded in our current budget. We still have 4 police officers. These were new positions that were just never filled. An office assistant too in the fire department. The public works had a senior engineer and a facility manager. Development services had a building inspector, a permit tech, and a part-time associate planner. Parks had a few just very seasonal employees. The library has a part-time library assistant, and then fiber optics. We have 1 vacant position that we chose not to fill or fund, and then there's another new position that was never filled. So with these positions, that's about $1.3 million that are still not included in the budget. I also want to point out that as well as all the operating costs across to all the other divisions and departments, which are a lot, have not been included in. So they're still operating and budgeted at those low amounts after their cuts. As far as vehicles and equipment go, there's been no request for new vehicles or equipment in the governmental operating funds that are included in this budget, except the following. And again, this is the governmental operating funds. I have a note there on the very bottom right there in your binder if you look on the ER&R page 2, that you'll get a full list of all the other budgeted purchases as far as like from wastewater, solid waste, streets, etc. Anyway, but what is included is a new K9 vehicle with equipment estimated to be about $100,000. This purchase is to be funded with the opioid settlement monies that the city has received. The police also have a vehicle for $75,000 that is going to be funded with an EV grant. Parks and Rec, those first 3 items there, the John Deere mower, the pickup, and then the John Deere 6-foot mower. These are items that were included in ER&R. They're already specifically budgeted and were paid for from ER&R. But included with the levy lift is a field drag that they are requesting for $60,000. There's still a need for the police fire command vehicle that is not included in this budget. That estimated cost, we just got new estimates, went up to $881,000. And then, but as far as an alternative, we're still looking at different purchasing plans. We're looking for more cost-effective methods, such as evaluating leasing and state financing programs that I actually applied for state financing, see what that's going to be and how that would work for us. And then we also have a leasing program that we're looking at that we'll start diving into it in January to see if that's the place we want to go at that. So you'll be hearing more about that later. All right, so let's talk about the property tax. So just a reminder, our current property tax that we're collecting in this year in 2025, last year there was an assessed value of $5.9 billion. We had 1% allowable of $93,000. There was new construction of $27,000. There was a refund levy of $20,900. And then council chose to use the remaining bank capacity that we had at $406,000. So our 2025 levy amount was $9,475,709. That equated to a levy rate of 1.5853. So this year with the ballot measure that was passed, the assessed value is $6.221015 billion. Instead of the 1% allowable, we asked for the levy lid lift, that the 1% is the lid, and so we asked that to be lifted higher, so that came to $4.5 million. All new construction is included in the lift, so normally, we have, the way Washington works, we have a levy amount that the city collects. And that's based off of the assessed value. Oh, every year, that's what we get. And if assessed values go up, our rate drops. The city still just gets that amount plus if the 1% allowable. If assessed values drop, we still just get that same amount. So it doesn't change. This year, for this levy lid lift, it was a little backwards. Next year, it'll go what I just talked about. Voters approved a rate of 2.2537. So as new assessed values come in, new construction came in, they take all of that and they multiply it by the rate that the voters approve for. So that's why we're getting the amount, the dollar amount there that you're seeing there, that $4.5 million. Also included is the senior disability exemption levy. We're going to have two levies from now on, the one that has the levy lid lift, and then the senior disability exemption levy, which is excluded from that. So that amount, the assessed value of that was $93 million. That's about $148,000, and they will continue to pay the 1.58 for 2026. Questions on that? I'm going to keep going through here on these, but
Councilmember Trisaro.
yes.
Do we plan on doing any sort of education for residents here in the city about that exemption, about letting people know what they can, because they don't have, or do they have to apply for that?
They have, they work with the county. So if they apply with the county, and they're the ones who determine if they qualify or not. And I don't know, I sent an email to you guys. There was some confusion on my part about the exemption levy on why it's not applied to the regular levy. So I hope you guys got that email, because I thought that's going to come up, that I got from Kevin and attorneys were looking at this too, and got a nice response from the assessor's office explaining that the exemption levy does not apply to regular levies. It's only voted increases. So that's, and I assumed when I'm doing this that it applied across the board to all of it, but they do not apply to the regular levy. So they will still be paying this portion of it.
I guess I would just throw out there, if we had a way to reach out to residents to let them know how to apply for that exemption.
All right. No, yeah, that's something we definitely look into. I know we have, I can't remember if we have it on our bills right now, but I know it's on our website, but definitely.
I know that Danny Hagan does a lot of
Yeah.
outreach with that. He's the assessor, and he is happy to speak to any group, anytime, anywhere. And he's very available to educate people.
Yeah, they do a really, really great job at that too. So a combined, the total assessed value down there on the very bottom there, it was $6.3 billion, and that was a 5.65% increase. So this is just a chart showing kind of a history since 2015 on where we were. You can see from the rate in 2015 and even earlier than that. The rate has been dropping year to year, and this is actually the first levy lid lift or voted levy that the city has done for many, many years. So included in this number, though, is also that exemption levy that I talked about. But as you can see there, our population is estimated at 36,050. The rate at 2.2537, or rounded up to 4. and then our assessed value is 6.3 million, and then our total levy went up from 9.475 to 14.168. These numbers, the assessed value, are the most updated numbers I have from the assessor's office. They're really great on getting that information out. I received an update on Friday, so this is the most updated numbers. And then this chart just shows the assessed value, as you can see, is that red line going up. As that increases, our levy rate drops. That's the what's the green color that's on there, and then our population is the blue. In 2026, the estimated rate goes from 1.5853 to the voter approved 2.2537. So you can see in 26, way on the right there, that is increasing to the past levy, and that's kind of looking there. It's kind of brings us right back to about where we were in 2019 as far as the rate goes. So a little bit, I wanted to talk about the property tax levy. So as the mayor had said, we started planning for this, many months before, and we had to have a ballot measure that was due to the county, to the auditor's office, by August 5th of this year, 2025. So we made some assumptions based on that we didn't know at the time. And so what we knew then, we included 9 firefighters because we were really hoping for a safer grant that was going to pay for a good portion of that. That did not happen, so that's why we dropped it to 6. I had estimated a 3% assessed value increase, just didn't know what was going to be happening with the economy right now, and that actually came in at 5.65. We had new construction estimated at 20,000, and that actually came in at 65,000. And I had assumed, again, like I talked about, that the senior disability exemption was across the board, and that was not. So all these numbers were based on estimates and on these assumptions. So on November 4th, the voters approved the 2.2537 maximum levy rate, which equates to an estimated amount of $4.5 million, plus an estimated, I said 150, that's the 148,000 for the senior disabled exemption levy amount. So without that, we're receiving a little more than what our previous estimate was, which brings us to a few things. It creates a lot more financial stability for a longer length of time for the police, fire, and parks departments. It also creates an opportunity to meet the needs that the citizens voted for sooner. First of all, many items that were cut from these department budgets, the levy lift didn't fully restore their budgets, and they're not reflected at all in all the other departments except for fire, police, and parks. But the things that we had talked about that we could possibly move forward on sooner, we could address adding an additional police officer, or address the need for the command vehicle. We could increase the park's capital budget from $500,000 to $1 million to meet the needs of a new playground at Hillcrest in 2026 with safe walking sidewalk connects. Now, that's one that I think after discussion with the mayor and Director Berner, that was planned for $1 million every year. We just weren't sure how things were coming, so we budgeted that at 500. And I had mentioned to you guys, to the council, that previously that that 500,000 isn't enough to do a big project, but we could be doing a lot. Jennifer identified a number of things that we could be doing with that. If we did increase it to the $1 million that was previously planned, we could that'd be enough to actually finance that whole new playground at Hillcrest. Also, moving forward sooner with things that we talked about was additional park capital projects such as the trail, walking path connections, new skate park, safety lighting, and ball field upgrades. And there's still additional trail maintenance that is still needed. And again, this levy does not address the continual and dire need for all the other services from other departments. And the city is still going to have to maintain a 15% reserve. So one thing I wanted to show to council tonight was these numbers here, the revenues and the expenses, were what we had used to do an estimate of what we're going to need for the first 6 years plus, excuse me. Anyway, one thing that it shows here is that if we receive the number that we initially had planned for or estimated at that 3.9, that in 2029, we would hit a break-even point where the revenues that came from the levy list, and again, this is just for the levy lid lift portion. Excuse me, apologize. That in 2029, we would hit that break-even point. And then our expenses would start again going over the revenue that we'd be receiving.
While Doug clears
I'm
his throat,
sorry.
I'll point to the graph at next year, 2026, how revenues exceed expenses, and it looks great. And that's, of course, what we're looking at with this budget. It reminded me of city councils in Mount Vernon in years, even decades past, where the next year's budget looked pretty good. And so they decided not to take the 1%, the one ability that they have to increase revenue. And well, if you do that over time, this graph sort of demonstrates what happens. You underfund yourself and you miss out on those additional increases each year, and it compounds. And so I can't remember the exact stat, but it was something like $10 million that may have been left on the table by not taking those increases. My point is that we have to look at this graph holistically. We have to look into the future and think about where we're going to be as a city years from now, not just this year. Yes, we have more revenue than expenses. I would encourage you, first of all, not to spend all that revenue, but to consider building our fund reserve and consider also that list of priorities that we promised the voters for public safety and parks, to consider some of those projects maybe as well in there. So, Doug, did that give you long enough to clear your throat?
Yeah, I hope so. Wasn't there somebody you can like tag out, have somebody replace me for a while? If anybody wants to. Yeah, so city is recommending moving forward with that levy amount associated with the rate that was approved by the voters. So before I move on with all the adjustments,
Yes, Councilmember Brocksmith.
Awesome, thank you. Doug, why is the expenses bigger? Where is this list defined? When you get to 2027, there's a large expense number, 4.8, which stands out a little bit.
Yeah, this is off the plan. I brought the spreadsheet over too, so we could get to that. But this is the plan that council had looked at, that when we were estimating everything that we were going to be putting in. 27 goes way up because there's capital expenditures for the fire department that they're doing. So so it's that previous plan that was approved, and I can show you that. I could get out of this right now, or we can show you that later.
And I know where to find it. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, you bet. Any other questions?
I wouldn't mind going to that spreadsheet if you don't have something else lined up right this second.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go to it anyway, but I can jump to it now. Okay, want to do that.
Oh, no, if you have to exit, we'll keep going. Just remind me when we get there that this is what you were talking about.
Well, there's an easy way of doing this, right?
Maybe.
Well, we'll just go on, and then I'll come to that. Because there's a number of things in there I did want to point out, so. So one of the things that I need to point out are things that have changed from the preliminary budget. And so what I'm asking in the ordinance has these adjustments to the preliminary budget that was presented. So in the general fund, we're asking for an increase of property tax revenues by $2,978,814 to account for the levy lid lift. There's a decrease of property tax revenue by $11,000 that we're taking out of the general fund and moving it to the library to offset a reduction in funding that came from Skagit County. Human resources, we're asking for an increase in expenditures in the amount of $700 due to an increase in drug and alcohol testing through AWC. In the police department, to authorize one new firefighter, sorry, authorize one new police officer position and increase expenditures in the amount of $275,198 for salaries and benefits, operating expenses, in a vehicle and equipment to account for the approved levy lid lift. In the fire department, we're asking to authorize 6 new firefighter positions and increase expenditures in the amount of $932,670 for salaries and benefits and operating expenses to account for the approved levy lid lift. Also, an increased salary and benefits to fund a vacant nurse educator position in the amount of $151,891. And a decrease of expenditures in the amount of $50,032 to reflect a decrease in what I had estimated the left premiums would be. I believe I had estimated like 10% and they came in at 5%. So in development services, we're asking for an increase in salaries and benefits and operating costs in the amount of $165,247 to fund the vacant engineering technician position. That was the general fund. So now for the Parks and Recreation Fund, we're asking for an increase of property tax revenues by $1.5 million to account for the levy lid lift. An increased expenditures in the amount of $1,067,000 to account for approved levy lid lift to include authorize and fund 2 new parks maintenance workers and 1 part-time rec lead position in the amount of $256,503. Fund a vacant 1 parks foreman and 1 on-call facility monitor in the amount of $150,555. Increase operating expenses in the amount of $100,185. And increase capital expenditures $60,000 for a new field drag and $500,000 for new capital improvements. Again, these things that I'm talking about right now are on that sheet that were included with there. And that's where council could consider increasing that $500,000 for the capital improvements. The library fund, kind of a wash here, but they're increasing their property tax revenue by $11,000 that we're moving from the general fund and decrease the interlocal library service revenue that by $11,000 to account for a reduction in funding from Skagit County. In the preliminary budget, we didn't, our lodging tax advisory council had not met yet, and so it was in the preliminary budget just as previous. And so as we've discussed, there is a decrease in expenditures by $165,856 to reflect the LTAC actions. And then in our American Rescue Plan Act, our ARPA funding, that we will be finishing that out in 2026. The way the city handles all of our interest, all of our investments, the interest that comes in is collected, and then it gets, by statute, it gets allocated out by reserves that are left in there. Since there won't be any, I took out any interest going to there. So that was just $1,000 interest that will not be allocated to this fund at the end. Wastewater utility fund. So asking for an increased salary of $104,030 to account for, I missed this in the budget process. The benefits were budgeted, but the salary and wages were missed, and I just had a wrong code in there, and it didn't calculate the salary in there, but it did put in all their benefits. So we're asking for that. And then a decrease in operating expenditures in the amount of $95,000 just to help account for that salary increase. The ER&R fund, again, this is one that was not included in the preliminary budget. Just we left it in there just as it was for 2025. There was a decrease in revenues by 39,666 to account for adjustment in the police ER&R contribution, and then decrease expenditures to match equipment replacement budget in the amount of 1.9 million. And this line item, it just was not finalized in the preliminary budget. So with those adjustments, this is just an insert from page 11 in your summary that you have. As you can see there, the general fund, street funds, and park recreation and library are total governmental operating funds for the budget for 26. Revenue is 51,845,000 and expenditures of 50,216,000. We are estimating a fund reserve in December 31st of 2026 at 8.9 million, and that's a $1.6 million increase. Instead of, like last year, we took 1.9 million out of reserves. This is kind of putting 1.6 back in. And then the bottom line is overall, all funds, total budget of 93,294,000. Expenditures of 92,979,000, an estimated balance of all the other funds, are all combined at 33 million, and we've budgeted 315 across all of them. So with that, just some major considerations, meeting our fiscal policy. As you know, our general fund has a reserve policy that we have to be at 15%. This budget brings us at 18.3%. Our parks at 18.7%, library fund at 10.2%, and our street fund at 12.7%. So with that ends my presentation. I'm not sure if I can bring up that sheet and we can talk about things, or if public comments. No, I'm not. How do you want me to?
Can you go back to the last one?
Absolutely.
You mentioned what it was for general fund.
Oh,
Right. You didn't really, like, how much we're supposed to have in parks.
yeah, I'm
That-
sorry.
yeah.
Parks, library, and streets, our policy is it has to be a minimum of 10%. It's worded 10% working up to 15%.
Okay.
So they're all met there.
Okay, great.
Council, should we go to that spreadsheet right now while it's still fresh in our minds, and then we can come back for, let's do that, Doug. Is that easy to do?
I don't know. I just want to.
I'll
I
ask
don't want
you
to
again
just.
in a few
I don't want to
minutes.
disconnect. Oh, hopefully I didn't just. Oh, everybody's still there, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, oh, this is small. All right, so, sorry, it's kind of here. So, Councilmember Brocksmith, to answer your question, and anyway, this is the sheet that was presented to council to talk about what we were going to need for the levy amount. And it goes in here from, parks, a general fund replacement of it's supposed to have color on it. I wanted to pinpoint something here. So looking at the general fund replacement of 1 million, and then capital projects of 1 million. So $2 million each year for parks. Police, it was one officer each year for the next 6 years, so a total of 6 officers plus equipment, and every third officer, they need a new vehicle, so that was included. A general fund replacements for the fire department are these amounts in here, all the fire engine, defibrillators, replacement, self-contained breathing apparatus, ambulance, replacement. These are all, included. That's why we can see the difference here from month or year to year. And then 6 entry-level firefighters at 3%. So the total expense-wise here, when we were planning, it was $3.1 million. It varies year from year based off what is coming across in these other areas. So I wanted to talk, first of all, this general fund replacement here, and then these general fund replacements here. First of all, parks is a little different because they're not part of the general fund. They're part of the governmental operating funds, but what happens is a big portion of their funding is property taxes. But we have to take out of the general fund and give it to parks to help make them whole all the time. So what this is doing is saying that if the levy came across, this could be potentially general fund savings because we don't have to give it to them because they're receiving it now directly from this other portion of that. Fire, the general fund replacement there, that's their capital fund, so that's also not general fund. These are things though that the general fund paid into to help contribute to this, and we would no longer have to make those contributions because they're included in there. So I hope that kind of makes sense what those amounts are. But this is the sheet, and that went to 2031, and I added up to 2035. It's not on this one. I apologize. I thought I sent that one, but I guess I did not. I just did that later this afternoon, just to extend that out to show what it would do. This was the planning document that was reviewed. So I don't, any questions on this?
Councilmember Brock-Smith, Councilmember Vanderstoop, is this getting at what you were wondering about? Or is there?
Yeah, I'll jump in if you can hear me.
Yep.
Thank you. We looked at this at great length, and it went through a couple of iterations, and this all looks very familiar, of course. Doug, interpret the numbers in the end. Is this kind of a zero sum where this really accounts for all? At the bottom, it shows income versus cost.
So this is adding, this just adds up for the 6 years that were in here. Yeah, that was estimated at the time when we were trying to figure out how much we would need, the levy amount that would be needed each year. This row right here is when we were just estimating like a 3.9 million and then adding 1% to that each year. That's what that total represents. Is that what you're asking me? I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Let me think about my question for a bit more, but
Okay.
thank you.
Questions? Okay. All right. Doug, you don't have any other items to present for this item?
No, so maybe just a little before we
Yeah.
get into the public hearing, just to kind of talk about tonight. Excuse me. So after this, if council wants to continue on this, I do have that, those sheets here that we list out all the expenditures. So if there's any adjustments you want, I can make those directly into here, which will change our ordinance numbers, and then that'll automatically change the ordinance that you have. So we can go talk about that later. Also, after this public hearing is for our budget, but also for our revenue. And so after this public hearing and after we discuss what we're doing at the budget here, then there's the opportunity to look at the resolution for the property tax levy that can be looked at. So with that,
Okay, and council, if you think of any more questions along the way, we'll have time to field those as well. So with that, I will open up the public hearing for the 2026 city budget. If there's anyone present tonight first in council chambers, anyone in council chambers wishing to speak on the 2026 budget, come on up to the podium. Okay, then I will open it up to our online guests. Oh, we have one. Hello and welcome.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I live here in Mount Vernon. Nice to see you all again. First, I want to say that I fully support funding our fire department and I fully support funding our parks. I was hesitant to vote yes on this for the funding of the police department. I will take it for what it is to get the parks and the police department or the fire department funded. Seeing that there, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but that there will be an unexpected increase, or we might have money to potentially hire a 7th officer, if I was reading that correctly. That's not what I voted for. I agree that I hope that that money will be saved for future possible balancing of the budget issues, but I'm going to request that say that there were a lot of us that were not happy about the increase of armed officers in our community, excuse me, but voted anyways because of the greater issue of the parks and the fire department. So just taking that into consideration, that we were told it would be 6 officers, and I would like to see it not exceed that. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andrea. Looks like we have one more person coming up to give some comments on the budget. And I think while we're waiting and he's preparing, I'm going to ask our online guest, Callie, to please unmute. And if you still have a comment for the public hearing, to share that with us at this time.
Hi there. Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone, again. My name is Callie Lowenstein. I am an educator and mom here in Mount Vernon. And I want to call upon the City Council, kind of extending the comments that Andrea just made, to build on the work to date and take a more expansive and evidence-based approach to public safety as we think about the opportunities afforded by the levy lid lift. I want to say that I'm really proud and appreciative of our town leadership's consistent stand against ICE and the work around iOS. And I want to encourage us to build on this work in 3 ways. Number 1, most importantly, not locking ourselves into funding an additional police officer every year at the rate of nearly $300K, including new weapons and vehicles, which, so far as my read goes, was greater than the cost of 2 full-time parks maintenance workers and a part-time rec lead, to the tune of $4 million over the next 5 years. I want to urge Mount Vernon to draw upon really successful and cost-effective programs that have been demonstrated across the country, such as hiring additional social workers and piloting a social work outreach van separate from the police department to address the mental health, addiction, and homelessness crises that were what I was hearing when I was doorbelling and talking to neighbors over the course of the last several months as the most urgent public safety issues that folks are talking about in our community. We saw tonight that over 30% of our budget is already going to the police department. So this is not the area that's underfunded or undersupported. And there's decades of evidence showing that increasing police staffing and police presence, sometimes called proactive policing, does not actually prevent crime, while it pulls away resources from services that address root causes. And I'm happy to share those resources and meta-analyses with council. By investing our new revenue in more innovative solutions like social work outreach van and investing more than the current 2% of our budget allocated for affordable and emergency housing, we're going to really address the root causes that citizens in our community were talking about when they talk about public safety. Two other key dimensions of public safety and well-being that I would like to see more explicitly addressed in this budget, using the additional revenue from the levy lid lift. One is tree cover and climate resilience. Our region is supposed to be a temperate rainforest. I think, Mayor, I've talked to you about this before. Many of our town's neighborhoods have so little tree cover that people cannot walk safely during the daytime in the summer for lack of shade. I know when I was pregnant, I literally could not walk from my house 2 blocks to the park at Hillcrest because of the lack of tree cover. This is an essential part of safety too, and I would like us to address it really explicitly with these public safety funds. And lastly, bike mobility and bike safety. I saw mention of expanding and widening LaVenture Road even further. This is a huge public safety concern for those of us who want to increase pedestrian mobility and bike accessibility, especially for young people and kids who would like to be able to bike freely to our schools. And especially with the increase in SUVs and trucks and our already overly wide local streets, which encourage fast traffic, that's really unsafe, especially for our children and other folks in the community who want to use bikes. And I'm a member of the Skagit Valley Bike Coalition, and as a member of that group especially, I would like to advocate for some of our safety funding to be allocated towards bike safety and specifically towards protected lanes. And then lastly, I would like the public to be provided more detailed information about the $880,000 command vehicle mentioned earlier in the meeting. This is exactly the kind of thing that I would like to see our town not invest further taxpayer dollars in, and instead invest again in social workers, emergency housing, and youth engagement resources instead of additional police officers, tree cover for safe, healthy, walkable neighborhoods, and protected and dedicated bike lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lowenstein.
Anyone?
Anyone else? Oh, Kevin, did we get squared away over there?
I'm not sure.
All right.
Is there anyone at TD10 or at a computer who has the power to put a graphic on the screen?
Oh, graphic on the screen. So TV10, there was a request for a graphic on the screen. What kind of graphic do we have there, Kevin?
It's a Venn diagram in color.
Sounds harmless enough.
That's what I'm hoping. If it's not possible, I
Okay.
just ask.
Is there somewhere that we can mail it to?
We could do email. We could do, yeah, I don't think we have printing capacity here. Do you want to email it to council@mountvernon.gov? We would be able to pull, most of us would be able to pull that up on our laptops. Thanks, Andrew.
Good evening, council. My name is Kevin Moss. I'm a resident of Mount Vernon. Our voters recently approved the levy lift that you guys talked about. That takes our property tax rate up to nearly twice the level of our neighbors in Burlington and Anacortes. That's it.
We're on.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that our budget requires this rate. Unfortunately, though, our city contains within its limits a much higher proportion of untaxable property, not in the assessed based, county facilities, community college buildings, Skagit Regional Hospital, and every single school in our district is inside city limits. This is much greater than any of our neighbors. Put simply, while Mount Vernon's population is larger than Burlington and Anacortes combined, those two cities' assessed values, when added together, are about 50% larger than ours. The same dynamic impacts the Mount Vernon School District. Its levy rates are much higher than neighboring districts due to different relative property tax bases. But there is opportunity. All that untaxable property, the county, the hospital, all that I just mentioned, does generate employment, and many people who work in medical or government jobs would live here if we would build homes for them. Mount Vernon can choose to maintain its services without further tax increases if it allows denser housing to be built near jobs. Tonight, I brought a Venn diagram showing the iron law of city funding, density, and services. If our city does not allow denser construction in the future, this council will find itself having to either cut services or raise taxes again. And I think the finance director did refer to that over time, as services requested by the citizens are increased, the cost of those increases, it'll eventually outrun the levy lift that you just passed. However, if the city builds more densely, then it can fund more services and not raise taxes. I wish I could show it on the screen to all of the people in the audience. Next month, city staff will likely ask the council to amend the city's code to allow multifamily housing along Riverside Drive and in that northwest corner of town. This will be a good start, but the city needs to embrace denser housing in the highest demand areas, near the hospital, near the schools, and the college. This does not need to be 100-unit buildings. For example, Burlington has zones that caps buildings at 8 plexes, while still allowing greater density than almost anywhere in Mount Vernon. Beside the initial sales tax impact of new construction, new residents and new dwellings generate sales tax revenue from shopping online and from shopping in town. Also, they pay utility taxes and they pay more property taxes. I urge the council to hold staff and our consultants accountable for working carefully through the comprehensive plan process that takes a deep look at increased density throughout the city. Our plan is already late, but that's no reason to rush through nominal changes. We should carefully plan for more housing close to employment centers. This will improve services and reduce tax rates for our residents. The school district will benefit as well, but only the city can change housing code. So this depends on you. I know some of you won't be here next year, but for the rest of you, let's get that comp plan right. Let's build denser, hold down taxes, improve services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Anyone else? All right. I will close the public hearing for the 2026 city budget. Doug comes back up. I'll ask council if they have any questions that have come up. Yes, Councilmember Sarah.
I'm interested in your projections long-term, kind of as we're referenced there, about when we have that break-even point. What I'm wondering is that right now the private sector is wrestling with how changes will occur as it pertains to AI. Are we in city government imagining what those changes or those shifts are going to be for governments? Does AWC give us any sort of direction or maybe what that looks like?
From what I've observed, I think as more information has become available, that yeah, there are some agencies that are trying to get that information out. But for where we are right now and trying to guess or predict where things might go, I think it's more of an awareness piece. We need to be aware of what's going on and develop some policies early for what we do know versus what might happen. So we're watching, yeah. Yes, Councilmember Vanderstoep.
Hey, how hard would it be to go over any major vehicle purchases that we're projecting over the next like 4 or 5 years? Would that be an impossible task to ask you to do?
Like right now?
Well, at some point.
Yeah.
No. $800,000 command vehicle. How much is a fire truck? About $1 million. And then what's the out cost of a new police officer vehicle? Is that about $100,000? Is that right?
Well, maybe $100,000 fully loaded. I mean, with all the equipment.
75, 80?
Yeah, that 100,000 was for a K9 unit, fully loaded. They have special equipment in there, so that's why they estimate 100 for that.
Gotcha. Okay. That is just a lot on vehicles. Not that that's a bad thing.
Well,
but that's a lot of money.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't put a lot of it in the budget, because I really want to start in January concentrating on looking at those different possibilities of funding and leasing programs for, mainly it would be for non-CDL driven vehicles, but definitely an area that I think that's why there's so little in the budget this year for that, because we need to look at that.
And just if you don't mind, if nobody else has any other pressing questions, not to pick on police, but you guys drive a lot. And so, I'm guessing, the life expectancy of a new police vehicle cannot be actually all that long. It has to be, what, 4 or 5 years? Yeah, that's just doing quick math, maybe $15,000, $20,000 a year out the door with every new purchase. Yeah, I would be interested in figuring out, not that there is anything to figure out, but if there was, man, that sure would be a nice savings.
Yeah, and I think there is gonna be some savings associated with moving to that leasing program for that. And newer vehicles, less maintenance. There's some drawbacks though too, so we need to weigh those out with, at the department level for everybody. But yeah, I'm welcome to get input and share, for any of that stuff, so absolutely.
And that's up and coming. That's coming 2026.
Yeah, I have a meeting with them. I push it out because of budget, I believe on January 8th, and then, a meeting with staff on January 15th.
You're so amazing. Of course you already have this all lined up. I don't even know why I'm bothering you. I do have one additional if nobody else has anything else.
Any other, one
No,
more
go ahead,
quickly, and
Al.
then we'll go back.
As far as the fire vehicle goes, and I once again don't want to call you guys out here, but that ladder truck, hopefully at some point we're going to have some more cooperation among the cities. And if that happens, would we still need to budget for that fire truck ourselves exclusively?
So, yeah,
That's
and
not the answer I wanted.
and the reason I would guess that we would is if there was a regional fire, if we converged, I think each municipality and district would bring their own assets to the table. And so it wouldn't, and we need it in the meantime because we don't have a timeline on an RFA.
As we explore RFA possibilities, it changes a lot of things. In terms of resource vehicle requirements, because now instead of several agencies that are doing the same thing and need the same equipment, it's one.
Gotcha. Maybe some stuff to explore there in the future. Okay. Yeah, good news. All right. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Councilmember Sarah.
Something that I would like to explore, as we look forward to what our budget's going to look like. I know that a neglected part of law enforcement that we want to explore is traffic enforcement. And that isn't something that was included in these positions, correct?
It will be included in the positions as that unit is part of the budgeted officers that, it's part of the mix.
Okay.
And so chief is staffing that division as we go with some of these, utilizing some of these positions.
Thank you, Jim.
Councilmember Brock Smith, I haven't looked at my video screen for a little while. Are you good?
Sure, I'll jump back in. Thank you. Well, I mean, I guess just a couple of comments to start, wow, how big of a difference it is when, folks step up and vote for these kinds of resources. We have two budgets. We started without the levy numbers in our budgets. Excuse me. And we were really just right on the threshold of what our fiscal policy requires, with 15% in our general fund and 10% down in our parks fund. And so it's just a kind of a new day for us to have the opportunity to provide these additional resources and to have more financial certainty in the city as well. So I just want to thank the citizens of Mount Vernon who voted, and know that we're going to do our best to live up to the things that we promised we would do. I guess so that sort of second part of that comment was thank you, and the second part was just great opportunity for us, I suppose, and do this well. one of the things that you sort of recognize when you look at this budget process versus previous budget processes is that we are always pulling from the general fund and taking it down, down, down. And this one's different because we started at the bottom of our policy at 15%, and we've been able to add up. And so it's more than I think I've seen, and that's a good thing for the city. But it does raise for me: are we doing as much as we said we would, or that we could, for the city, for folks who voted for, and for everybody who's going to benefit from these services? And so that's the thing that's still outstanding in my mind, is a sort of balance with investing in the general fund versus adding additional things that are directly providing the levels of service that people voted for with the levy. And so that's still on my mind. For instance, the parks. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because I know first on the agenda is the levy rate and second on the agenda is the budget, but the two are linked together. So not a comment on the levy rate. So thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember. I think to that, instead of the question being a choice, we either add to the fund reserve or we deliver the things that we promise. I think it's more of a mixture. We're adding to our fund reserve in this draft so that we can deliver what we promised in future years. That's my intention anyway.
Mhm. Time to, can I call?
You can call the question anytime you want, Councilmember Hudson. It's
I,
ordinance 3927.
thank you. I am very thankful to the citizens who pushed this over for us. We so appreciate it. I don't want the city to get in the same position it was in and where we were. I don't want to leave that to another council to have to deal with. I want to be, we are fiscally responsible. We're not willy-nilly spending money. And I take offense when people say that. So, excuse me for that. I would like to move to approve the city budget ordinance number 3927, putting the extra money in our fund balance. I want to save it and use it as we said we would, which I know we will, but I just want to say that I want it to be used like our voters asked us to do.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hudson to approve the budget, a second by Councilmember Tercero. Any discussion, council? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 4B, the last item under new business. It's the approval of a proposed resolution 2026 for a property tax levy. Doug has this one.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. So city staff asked council to adopt resolution number 1087 to set that city's 2026 property tax levy amount. For MRSC, as part of the budget process, the taxing jurisdiction established the amount of property tax revenue needed to fund the budget. That amount needed to fund the budget is called the levy. It is the total amount to be collected from the taxpayers by a taxing district. In Washington, property tax increases are not based on the increasing value of the properties. They are based on last year's property tax levy, which is simply the amount of the property tax that was assessed in the prior year. By November 30th of each year, the amount of taxes to be levied by taxing districts are certified to the county assessor in a dollar amount. In Mount Vernon, our tax levy amount in 2025 was $9,475,709. The county assessor calculates the levy rate necessary by dividing the total levy amount by the assessed value of property taxes in the district. By law, this number is expressed in terms of dollar rate per 1,000 evaluation. The city of Mount Vernon is required to hold a public hearing to review revenue sources for the coming year and to set the property taxes for the coming year. The city held the public hearing on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, and again, the budget public hearing on Wednesday, tonight, November 19th. For the 2026 levy, since the city is currently leveling less than its statutory mandatory levy rate of $3.66 per thousand of assessed valuation, the city chose to implement a levy lid lift. A levy lid lift is not a separate property tax, but rather a way of increasing the city's existing general fund levy above the 1% increase limit. On July 24th, 2025, the Mount Vernon City Council adopted Resolution 1078, providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the city to vote on a proposition that would provide funds for increased essential community services and improvements, including city fire and police personnel, fire equipment, and parks maintenance and improvements. With voter approval, it would authorize a maximum regular property tax levy for collection in 2026 at $2.2537 sorry, per thousand of assessed valuation. The city council chose to exempt senior citizens, disabled veterans, and other people with disability from the tax increase resulting from the levy lid lift. This would increase the total levy amount from 2026 from $9,475,709 to $14,168,468. So city staff recommends that council authorize a voter-approved maximum regular property tax levy for collections in 2026 of $2.2537 per thousand of assessed valuation. This recommendation would increase the levy rate approximately 66.84 cents per a thousand from 2025. This would increase the total levy amount by an estimated $4,694,291. The impact of an average home cost of $550,000 would equate to an estimated monthly increase of approximately $30.63, assuming a zero change in assessed value. So city staff asked council to adopt resolution number 1087 to set the city's 2026 property tax levy amount.
Questions for Doug on this before we dig in with the bill? Okay. Seeing no questions, this is resolution 1087.
I'll move to approve resolution 1087, setting our levy rate at 2.2537 per thousand.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hudson, second by Councilmember Tercero. To answer a question I heard just earlier today, yes, it would still keep Mount Vernon's levy rate lower than Cedar Woolley's. I know that came up.
Yes.
Any other discussion on this?
Well stated, Mayor.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Doug, thank you for your work on
Doug.
this.
Thank you.
Nice job.
What a year. Great job. Thank you. All right, that is the end of our regular agenda. I will ask at this point our city attorney to please call the mayor and council into executive session.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. I invite you into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to the enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 423110 subsection 1I. Executive session would be 15 minutes. We would convene at 7:44. No action after.
With that, we will adjourn the November 19th Mount Vernon City Council meeting at 7:29 p.m.